אנחנו יושבים על הרכס שצופה אל העיר העתיקה. אנחנו נהיה הראשונים להיכנס אליה. לנוע אל השער.
אנחנו הולכים ומעמיקים לתוך העיר העתיקה.
הר הבית בידינו, כאן תבין, הר הבית בידינו. נרות תאים כבעל, כל הכבוד.
To understand, we must look at definition of Jews themselves. Jews are a Semitic ethno-religious group, which means that it is a nation defined primarily by religion, unlike Muslims or Christians, who are a religious group without any nationality or other affiliation. That in practice means that there can be a Jewish state which is a national state, but there cannot be a Christian national state. This is important to take into account. In 18th century, a trend called nationalism began and full-fledged development of nations and national movements, and it would be unnatural if this trend did not also affect those nations that did not have their own national state. So Zionist movement was born, whose ultimate goal was to create a Jewish state in land from whom were driven out almost 2,000 years ago, and which was their home demonstrably even in the 13th century BC. 2,000 years before emergence of Islam and the fall of Jerusalem to the Arabs. Name of this land is Eretz-Israel, or as the empires called it for 2 millennia, Palestine. But what about practical implementation? Before declaration of State of Israel in 1948, there were 2 main types of Zionism. The main one with the most support and influence was Labor Zionism, which was represented by David Ben-Gurion, later Prime Minister of Israel, and which tried to realize the creation of Israel through a peaceful way, although they also later resorted to violence. Do you think center-left would commit Naz**SM, colonialism, and Gen***side? And yes, it is an antonym. Then there is revisionist Zionism, historically represented by organizations, Irgun and Lehi, about which I will not explain more. Why? Because they were never in Zionist mainstream, and moreover Lehi was so dumb that they thought that Axis would help them in the creation of Israel, and Irgun leader Menachem Begin in 1978 brought peace with Egypt by signing the Camp David Accords, which in principle went against the expansionist doctrine of revisionist Zionism. And as for the argument of colonialism, colonialism equals gradual expansion of the borders of the state in a certain, mostly overseas, territory and building colonies there. It follows from the definition that to create a colony you need an already existing colonizing state, which the Jews did not had. Also, as already stated, Zionism is a nationalist ideology, and nationalism is inherently anti-imperialism, which makes Zionists anti-imperialists, which they literally were when the nation-state replaced imperial territory, but we'll get to that imperial territory later. No, there wasn't. Some people try to claim that the Philistines were ancestors of today Palestinians, which is nonsense because Philistines had origins in Greater Southern Europe and West Asian area and were known as sea peoples, aka pirates. But that is nothing compared to the ignorance displayed by people who claim that the state entity that existed here from 1922 to 1948 was independent Arab Palestine. But what they are talking about was the British Mandate of Palestine. The word British is very important, and it is also on the passport. Now to all wasted opportunities for creating independent Arab Palestine. First opportunity to create an Arab state in the territory of the Mandate came in 1936 and was proposed by the Peel Commission. The plan was accepted by the Jews, but the Arabs categorically rejected. How unexpected, even though they would have received 80% of the Mandate. Then here was the 1947 partition plan, which the Arabs again rejected. After that there was 2000 Camp David Summit, which was a summit that was supposed to end the Israeli-Palestinian conflict once and forever, but failed. This is what Yasser Arafat refused. Palestinian state on 92% of West Bank and 100% of Gaza Strip, the dismantling of most of settlements and concentration of bulk of settlers inside the 8% of the West Bank to be annexed by Israel, the establishment of the Palestinian capital in East Jerusalem, Palestinian sovereignty over half-old city of Jerusalem and custodianship, though not sovereignty over Temple Mount, return of refugees to prospective Palestinian state though with no right of return to Israel proper, and the organization by international community of a massive aid program to facilitate the refugees' rehabilitation. Israeli-Palestinian talks in 2007 and 2008 also failed, even though Israel offered territorial compensation, meaning it would give up territory outside the 1949 demarcation line. Looking at this, you can see a certain pattern. The Jews have always accepted offers for their state even though it was not at all advantageous for them, but the Palestinians are still living dream of only Arab Palestine and no Israel. One of most popular arguments of pro-Palestinian hordes is so-called Nakba, translated as catastrophe. The argument goes like this: the Jews expelled Palestinians because Jews are Nazis, at least. Arguments fit together nicely. But as always, truth is a little different and a little complicated. Whether we like it or not, everything is not fault of Jews and reality is complex. The main change in this historical equation was the well-known war. More precisely, it was internal conflict in the mandate after adoption of two-state solution in 1947, and subsequent invasion of surrounding Arab countries day after declaration of Jewish state. In order for you to believe me, I will refer you to videos that focus directly on this. And there is another comment: why are there 6 million Palestinian refugees in world when 700,000 Palestinians left in 1948? Because United Nations also classifies children and grandchildren of these refugees as refugees, which is something it does exclusively for Palestinians, and that includes a separate agency we call UNRWA. And I honestly ask why they are not talking about the 800,000 Jewish refugees from Middle East.
أطفال يعني محتلون من قبل اليهود، لكن بإذن الله تعالى نحن سنقاوم وندافع.
Did Palestinians have leadership before Arafat? You will be surprised, they had. Disclaimer, but you would prefer if they didn't. I present to you Mufti of Jerusalem Amin al-Husseini. And why did I say that you wish he would never be the leader of the Palestinians? Because of this. Yes, this person was literally on the Axis side in World War II and actively helped them. A small note: al-Husseini was even a relative of Yasser Arafat. What is apartheid? Apartheid is inhuman acts committed for purpose of establishing and maintaining domination by one racial group over other racial group of persons and systematically oppressing them according to the United Nations. For the answer, just look at beginning of video and you will find out that accusation of apartheid is nonsense, because if you listened, Jews are not a race. And Israel shows no sign of segregation. Please show me a single example of racially, religiously, or nationally segregated toilets or water fountains in Israel and I will delete this video. And what about checkpoints? Let's put it this way: what was happening between 2000 and 2005, Second Intifada, and what was happening during Second Intifada? Terrorist attacks. Here I will go back on point 2, because it is important to remember that what Palestinians are doing is not normal. They still reject their own state on land that they deserve and still dream of Israel disappearing from the world map, and with such an attitude there is no chance for peace. And from my point of view, they don't even care about it. Just look at this: Palestinian Authority have its so-called Martyrs Fund from money from Israel, United States, and European Union. You can already tell from the name that this money does not go to help children with cancer. And they have audacity to put it publicly on their budget. And they even publicly support Hamas. By the way, a word in conclusion: in my opinion, peace and prosperity in the Middle East will occur at the moment when the Palestinians decide to accept the fact that Israel exists and has the right to exist, and not lead meaningless and painful wars against it that lead only to more death and no end to the conflict.
יאללה יא נסראללה, נדפוק אותך אינשאללה, נחזיר אותך לאללה עם כל החיזבאללה. יאללה יא נסראללה, תלך מפה יא זבאללה, נגזר כבר מלמעלה שזה הסוף שלך.